point? Well, I'm not here to complain about Michigan politicians, but the point is that just because you think you're out for a drink of water, that does not necessarily mean that's what's going on. And that's why I said that you're comparing your vision of the future to what you think is going on right now. Now, if you read the neuropsychologists like Vinogradova and Sokolov and Jeffrey Gray, they're basically behaviorists. And so what they tell you is this, and this is different. What they tell you is that you have this little expectancy map that's like the map the rat has of his surroundings. It's a spatio-temporal map. And so when you're doing something, you expect a certain outcome, okay? And then what you compare that to is reality as it unfolds, okay? So you could say, you've got this map, and then stimuli appear to you, and those are objectively real. It's like, no, that's wrong. It's wrong. It's interpretation everywhere. You think you know what's going on right now, and you think you know what you want. And the reason I'm making such a big deal out of this is because, look, if you're a rat and you're going about your business and something you don't want happens, according to the Gray behaviorist model, you have to revamp your map, your expectancy map. But according to the model that I'm proposing, it's way worse than that. Because you don't know where the damn error is. It might be in your map of what you want, not what you expect. That's a different thing. But it also might be in the map you have that's of the present. So it's not just the map that you have that's a prediction of your actions that's at fault. It could easily be the way that you're construing the world right now. And it could be error at any level of behavior. And so what it means is that when an anomaly occurs, it spreads doubt through the entire hierarchy that we were describing, including the future and the present and even the past. And you know this perfectly well. You can see it when you encounter a complex anomaly. So a complex anomaly would be you have a long-term relationship and you get betrayed. Okay, and so betrayed means you've trusted someone and they've enticed you to do so, and then they exploit that trust and hurt you. For Dante, the betrayers were in the lowest circle of hell. So it's a particularly nasty thing to do to people, because in some, if you think about trust as the precondition for interpersonal relationships, which it is, then if someone acts towards you in a way that violates your trust in trust, they've done you the worst disservice that someone can possibly be done. Okay, so you get betrayed. All right, so bang, that's an anomaly. What does it imply? Well, that's the wrong question. The right question is, what doesn't it imply? It implies that you just don't have the foggiest notion of what you're doing or what human beings are like. And that's, especially if it's a particularly vicious betrayal. Maybe, you've been suckered by a psychopath. It's like, okay, update your model and account for that. Good luck. Especially if you're naive, because the probability that you'll be able to reach down into the depths far enough to come up with a coherent explanation for why someone would do that is very, very low. And what I've discovered in my clinical practice is that if you get betrayed badly enough, the only language that you can use to describe it is fundamentally religious. At some points of betrayal, it's good versus evil. It's malevolence. And it's the malevolence that really traumatizes people. It's the fact that that person was out to hurt you. It's like, oh, well, what's a human being like when they're capable of that? It's like, it's an age-old question. Now, I'll tell you something weird and interesting. So, there's this old idea in Genesis. Okay, one of the first ideas in Genesis is, that God made people a paradise to live in. Okay, so let's just be wild about this for a moment and assume that your little model, when it's going well, is a little paradise, right? It's like the world's turning out the way you want it to. But there's a snake in there somewhere. And that means, well, why is there a snake? Well, because there's a bunch of things you're not paying attention to while you're going about your business, right? In fact, there's almost an infinite number of things that you're not paying attention to. And the problem is, one of those infinite number of things that you're not paying attention to can shift on you all of a sudden. And so there's always a snake in the garden, and then you have to figure out what to do with it. The thing is, if you interact with the snake, you get more conscious. But the problem with that is you lose your little paradise. Okay, well, it's worse than that, because that story's really old. We have no idea how old it is. It's disseminated all over the world, or it emerged independently in different places. We don't really know. But in any case, it doesn't matter. It's a fundamental enough story, tree plus snake plus people, that no matter where you go, some people have tree-snake stories. So, and I think that's because we lived in trees for like 30 million years and we got eaten by an awful lot of snakes. And so, you know, it's a story that really appeals to us. And every bloody science fiction movie you go to, most of the time, if the aliens are bad, they're always reptilian. You know, it's like you don't get furry little koala aliens that are chasing you around. It's like the ones in Alien, you know, they're a reptile inside a reptile. They're nasty beasts and they come out inside of you even, you know, which is another symbolic idea. So, okay, so you've always got the damn snake. And it's popping out all the time and there's nothing you can do about it except get ready to deal with snakes. No getting rid of them. So that's the first lesson. You're not getting rid of the damn snakes. You better learn to deal with them. Then the next question is, what is the worst possible snake? Now, one of the things that happened in Christianity, and this was influenced in part by Zoroastrianism, was the idea of almost an independent evil arose. You know, in fact, there was a branch of Christianity called Manichaeism that construed the world as a battle between good and evil, where good and evil had equal reality, and they were in this eternal battle. Now, that got wiped out by the standard Christian theory that evil is actually just the absence of good, which, anyways, you can have a big debate about that, and people have for thousands of years. But as Christianity developed, there's this weird mythology that grew up around the weird myth in Genesis, and the weird mythology was that the snake in the Garden of Eden was also Satan, and that he's the king of all evil. It's like, okay, what does that mean? It's pretty straightforward. What's the worst predator? Well, that's easy. The worst predator is a human being. And so the worst of all possible snakes is the most malevolent possible being. And that's exactly right. And that's why that association was made. It's so interesting because it took people like thousands of years to make that association, you know. And it wasn't really put together well until Milton formalized it in Paradise Lost. And so it's like we kind of observed this in action, you know, that there were bad people. Okay, so bad is a category. Well, what does bad entail? Well, mythologies of evil center in on the central features of what constitutes bad. You know, and carnivorous might be one of the things. Malevolent, out to hurt, right? Betrayal, lying, all the cardinal, you could think of the cardinal great sins. That's the worst snake. Well, it's a psychologization of the idea of the predator. And you know, it's even more sophisticated than that, because one branch of that theory is that the worst predator is the evil force outside of you, but the next branch of that is that the worst predator is the evil force within you. Yeah, well, that's when it gets really psychologized. You think, well, that's, you know, is that superstition? It's like, hey, that's not superstition, boys and girls. It's a lot more intelligent than that. It's the most sophisticated theory of the way things work that we have, and it's correct. Now, what that means from a metaphysical perspective, we're not going to talk about that because we can't. But we can certainly talk about what it means in practical Darwinian terms. You better know what's after you. And the worst thing that can possibly be after you is a fully motivated and completely malevolent human being. It's like, you know, skull-crushing cats be damned. You know, all they want to do is eat you. They're not going to torture you. Whereas if you fall into the hands of the wrong human being, man, you could be in excruciating pain for the next 20 years. So people are very imaginative when they figure out how to hurt someone. And they can keep it up for a long time. And they're fully motivated to do so under some conditions. And so you really got to watch out for that.